Olympic Sevens, folks, is back in action with the women this time, with the men having concluded yesterday. It was time for the women to get things back underway. Pretty good day one. A little bit less kind of clear cut from the men's day one, which was largely most teams either going 2-0 or 0-2. There's a lot of kind of 1-1 teams here in the women's sevens. I'm not sure if that means there's a bit more parity or if it's just the draw led to a kind of few more kind of even fixtures, but yeah, certainly the New Zealand girls looking pretty good, the Aussie girls looking pretty good, and the French, I think in particular, look really sharp as well. But yeah, we'll go through the results. You guys can let us know your thoughts on day one. It seems to me that there's more 15s players playing in the women's sevens than the men's, just from at a glance. Like the amount of women's 15s players that I recognized in the sevens, like Jasmine Joyce was there, you know, for the Blackfern sevens, like, you know, Woodman Whitcliffe was there, for the Irish Murphy Crow was there, and, you know, Drouin was there for the French, like a bunch of players who I recognized playing 15s. I mean, I guess the men's had Nawani Tawase and Dupont, obviously, and, you know, Keenan for Ireland, but it just felt like more 15s players. Maybe it's less specialized in the women's. I'm not sure. You guys who follow sevens will have to let me know a bit more about what I'm missing here, but just my gut feeling told me that was the case. First game, GB beat Ireland 21 points to 12. Murphy Crow, like I mentioned, she managed to get herself on the scoreboard. Jasmine Joyce was playing in that game, as I said. Bit of a tit for tat one. Ireland led 12-7 at half-time, but didn't score any points in the second, and GB were able to kind of get that one done. And I should say, by the way, 69,000 fans there again, and bloody great weather in Paris, so it made for some pretty entertaining rugby. The Aussies hammered the box. They called the box in the women's team, and it was a blitz box for the men. 34 points to 5. That is a proper hiding. It was 24-0 at half-time. I mean, Madison Levi got like a hat-trick. Crazy, crazy stuff. At least South Africa managed to score a try at the death versus 6 players after the Aussie girls had a yellow card. Also, the US beat Japan 36-7. So a couple of kind of hidings when you especially consider that the next game after that's France 26-0 over Brazil. I was thinking a lot of these games are going to be a few lopsided ones, but we did see some kind of upsets a bit later on. Japan scored first in their game, but yeah, the US, I think it was Kershey, scored a double in the first half. It was 22-7 at halftime, and then the US just kind of pushed on. And then the French over Brazil, man. The French love that team, don't they? They were just ferocious in the crowd. You could feel it almost like an 8th player on the pitch. France scored after a couple of minutes and just absolutely, yeah, just kept it ticking over, didn't they? 4 tries in the game, 2 in the first half, 2 in the second, and then anytime Brazil had the ball, France just kept pushing them backwards. It was really, really brutal to see. Brazil did well to get away with 0 at that one, sadly. Then Fiji-Canada. That was a cracking game. That was my maybe favorite game of the round. Yeah, I don't know. That was to be 17 points to 14. That's a really close game, and it was end to end, absolutely end to end. Like there was line breaks, there was kicks through. It was just proper sevens rugby, which I've watched more sevens in the last few days than I probably have in my entire life. It's been pretty good to watch. I think I'm getting into it. Canada scored first and second to make it 12-0 at half-time. Fiji scored to start the second half, though, but Canada got one in the corner. TMO had to check it to make sure the grounding was good, but it was given. Fiji did go length of the field at the death to get a kind of consolation try, which, given the points difference, may be a factor as an important one, but yeah, it finishes 17-14. Canada didn't look like losing it because, as I said, Fiji scored kind of late. New Zealand played China, which is an interesting one for me because I have a bit of a China connection. I used to live in China, in case you didn't know. I actually have a second channel where I wander about China. Sometimes speak to Chinese people in Chinese. Check that out. That's 2 cents on tour. But New Zealand, China, rugby connection meets my China connection. 43 points to 5. That was not the biggest margin of the opening day, but it was pretty lopsided. China getting a try in the second half was maybe like when the men's sevens, like when Japan would score, because Japan was on a few hidings, the crowd would probably give their biggest cheer. The biggest cheer of that game was probably when China finally scored in the second half. But man, Blyde got, what, how many tries was it? 4 tries? Michaela Blyde? Unbelievable. Just so many tries out wide. Waka got a couple. Yeah, that was a big old scoreline. So yeah, not a great opening for the Chinese girls, but certainly for the Blackfern Sevens girls, that was a great way to start the campaign. And then Ireland and South Africa. Why do you two teams keep getting drawn up against each other? You guys had your series in July, then you met in the sevens for the men's, and now you've met in the sevens for the women's. But it was a bit of a mismatch, 38-0. Not quite as, well, it's a very similar scoreline, isn't it, to 43 points to 5. Ireland under pressure early, but turnover ball, they punish. Murphy Crowe got one in the second. Oh, she almost got one in the first. Just scampering down the touchline. Just couldn't quite get her balance, but she got one in the second anyway. Parsons got a couple. 38-0's massive, massive for the Irish girls. And then the Aussies, 36-5 over GB. I mean, Kildare got ran down early, which I didn't think was possible because she's usually lightning, but the Aussies got themselves a yellow card for some cynical play at the ruck anyway. But GB managed to score, but then 6-player Australia still managed to score in return anyway, so they actually took the lead. GB had a great try-saving tackle before the end of the first half, but the Aussies scored anyway before halftime, and then also GB got punished for like trying to I think it was the same moment. It was trying so many hours of sevens. Trying to run it out of their own half before half time. That's when the Aussies punished them. So, yeah, pretty emphatic one for the Aussies, to be fair. 36-5 is a pretty encouraging scoreline for one of the tournament's favourites. The US hammered Brazil 24 points to 5. There were some nice tries in that game. The US scored a few real good ones, and it was good to see Brazil get their first points of the competition because they had been nilled earlier in the day by the French, and it looked like they were going to get nilled in that one, but not to be, thankfully. France beat Japan in the biggest scoreline of the day, 49-0. 49-0. They scored within the first minute. It was good to see Drouin score. And then I think the crowd basically left after that game. There were still two games to go, but there's visibly a lot more empty seats after that France game. Makes sense, it's in France. The home teams played their second game. Maybe they should have let the French play last. But then Fiji played China, and China beat Fiji 40 points to 12. It was China scored, Fiji scored, China scored, but then China scored, what was it, 19 points to 7 at halftime, and then second half China scored again. Real gas try on the right wing. 40 points to 12. They didn't even just scrape by. They comfortably won that game. Fiji knocked on a bit of ball. Didn't see that one coming. That seems like a bit of a big upset, doesn't it? And then New Zealand beat Canada in the final day's play. Pretty intense start, but New Zealand scored. Canada hit straight back, which seems to be a thing in sevens. New Zealand got one from the restart. And I'm really learning in sevens, the restarts are such an important thing, aren't they? Even more so than 15s. Like 15s, you can muck up a restart and you can kind of still get out of dodge. Oftentimes, if you muck up a restart in sevens, it directly leads to points. So New Zealand up 19-7 at halftime. Woodman Whitcliffe got one in the second half. They did pile on the points, so 33 points to 7. So, yeah, like I mentioned, not all the teams going 2-0. Like New Zealand top pool A 2-0. China and Canada both got 1-1 records, and then Fiji is none from 2. Australia topped their pool 2-0, but then GB and Ireland both 1-1, and South Africa bringing up the rear, none from 2. And then Pool C is more like the men's, where it was 2-0. So France and the US 2-0, Brazil and Japan 0-2. Brazil, Japan, South Africa. I don't really want to say Fiji. Seemed like the weakest of the bunch thus far, but yeah, I don't know. We'll kind of have to wait and see how things go on day 2. Certainly the teams who you expect, like the Aussies and the Kiwis, and then the French at home, look in the business. US 2-0 as well is a great start. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the women's sevens. Who do you see taking it out? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.